Since this powerful goat has been reigning supreme for a while, do you think that the ending for this story could be inevitable? Hey guys, MasakoX here. If you've been keeping up with my recent reviews of the manga for Dragon Ball Super, then you might know that things have actually been on a remarkable upswing with the content of said story. The arc has been really good, and now the last couple of chapters have just upped that feeling even more, with allusions to Marvel aplenty and actual vertical source material being used, instead of just making brand new species and beings who we aren't nostalgically invested in. And what do I mean by vertical exactly? I'm talking about just making more of the things that we're familiar with from our past, instead of just making new stuff, such as Zarbon's Not Cousin, as well as more Metal Men from Universe 7 this time. It's been getting things right. Oh, don't get me started about Pui-Pui's people. We actually see Zoonians. I didn't see that coming. And to top it all off, we see the ascension of Dragon Team members like Yamcha, and even Chaozu. And I'll be talking more about that one in a discussion video next week, so stay tuned for that one. By the way, if you haven't kept up with the manga, I seriously recommend that you jump into it and give it a look, as it's a really good story, and it's really making use of the original source material. Toyotaro has really improved his game here. Spoilers ahead, obviously. So, before we get to chapter 58 later this month, on the 20th, Haverock and I wish to speculate about where things might be heading. Well, why is that, Masako? Surely this arc's not going to be ending already? Well, we are around about 15 or so chapters into this venture, about nearly a year and a half, and each chapter's about 40 pages or so. We've had a lot of content out of this, so for us to conject that there's around maybe 2 or 3 chapters left, I think that's a fair assessment. Based on what we know from the story already told, we shall both share with you our idea for the end of this arc. So let's get things started with the end of the latest chapter we have currently, chapter 57, Remind Ourselves. And note, if you watch this after future chapters have come out, come back to this video and tell us how wrong we were. With Goku back on Earth, now thanks to a plucky call for help from Krillin, like Gohan did in Resurrection F, we are getting closer and closer to the Galactic Prisoner arc's exciting conclusion, we think. I mean, is it going to be that exciting? Really? Why are we so nervous, you're saying? Well, we've seen previous stories end on a little bit of a damp squib, because we know what sort of happens with most arcs in Dragon Ball. But Battle of Gods did have a nice change of pace though. Goku wasn't the one that won, he lost, and Beerus just fell asleep, and that was that. We want to try and figure out the ending of the latest manga arc, featuring everyone's favourite resident Ram Man. We present to you 5 different ways that the Moro arc could end. And here comes what pretty much happened in the previous arc. Number 1, the boring one, with a really painful comedic twist. Like with the previous arc, as well as most arcs, there is a brand new power, or a tried and tested one, that is wheeled out to save the day, going along the lines of just hit your opponent really, really hard and scream a lot. Goku reaches Ultra Instinct for the first time outside of the Tournament of Power, and then promptly uses this power to defeat Moro. That's it. There really isn't much more to say about that. We don't realistically think that this is going to happen immediately. This is going to be one of those last resort kind of jobbies, when Earth is on the brink of total peril, when all hope is lost and Earth is in ruins, and Goku has Moro's permission to go to the next dimension, as it were. Our Saiyan suddenly goes into the stance that he's been trying to attain since the end of the Tournament of Power, failing to do so in the Broly movie, and then manages to take the big bad down. Granted, yes, it's going to look really cool, but I can imagine that when we look back at this moment without the rosy tint of hype, we're just going to be going, wait a minute, oh, that was so predictable though. It won't age well, we think. Now, to be fair, this transition into the technique this time around would give him bigger gains than it did during the Tournament of Power, and also, it would actually get to see the power in its full majesty. But in short here, Goku wins. Same old, same old. Now, as for that humorous twist I alluded to, well, I don't think you're going to like it. Right, here goes. So, Vegeta gets back to Earth, only to learn that the threat has already been dealt with. Moro is gone, which means that all of that time expanding his mind, all that time meditating, gaining spirit control, that was for nothing. Goku laughs, Vegeta screams, you cut to commercial, you know, the usual. I tell you, if that actually happens to Vegeta, I will scream, and not the good kind. But seeing how fanservicey this chapter has been, as well as instilling a lot of good nature with the fandom, as well as some very skilled deep cuts, we're not very sure that this is likely to happen because it just seems so good. They can't slip this up now. We hope that this likelihood is on the lower end of the spectrum. Apart from a few little mishaps here or there, the latest chapter is really considered to be a true Toyotaro redemption arc, though we're still not going to forget the fact that Roshi's basically regressed from what he did in the previous arc. Thanks, Toyotaro. Both of us think we're going to get a decent payoff here, a satisfying one, to the Prince's quest on Yardrat, which takes us to the second option, which is 2. The most likely one to be popular, but it's still pretty obvious. This scenario is still not the most original one going, but it'll be a darn sight more creative and less frustrating than the previous one. It all starts with a lot of things that you think are going to work against Moro, not working. Even with Ultra Instinct unlocked, available at any time, and his friends by his side, like usual, Goku fails against Moro again. All of that power training with Mirrorless in his time chamber was just not enough to best a younger and strengthening Moro who can eat planets. Everybody had gained since New Namek, even him. Moro's got it so good, in fact, that he doesn't even need to target Goku directly with his magic and just simply drains the Saiyan dry. That is until Vegeta shows up! Yeah. Vegeta appears and using his newly minted spirit control power, whatever it may be, he manages to defeat the dreaded magician. Finally, getting a takedown on a big bad that he's deserved for a very, very long time. You know, for someone who has offed so many characters in the past, Vegeta has had very little luck in getting rid of the big bads. Usually, the deed was taken away from him, stolen even, by the likes of Goku, or even future Trunks in some cases. So, we think it would be a fitting end to this saga to give the prince his time to shine. It's predictable, sure, but it will certainly be a popular ending for the majority of the audience. Even people who aren't keen on Vegeta, they would think that, yeah, it's about time that he actually got a win. After all, he's being bigged up as Earth's defender. That is his role, much more so than what Goku is, which to us should give the prince some kind of recognition here, some kind of kudos. We admit that this feels kind of obvious, but it wouldn't be an anticlimactic ending. But then again, we want to have someone other than Goku to be the one that saves the day, really. And that is something that I think we are sure of that Vegeta's not gonna let Goku forget about anytime soon.
Hey Kakarot, remember that time I won against Moro? The fact that I managed to do something that you couldn't? Yeah, those were good times.
Number 3. 7-3 is done with taking orders, or he misses taking them. I think that you can agree that the android 7-3, the one with the skill of absorbing 3 powers at a time for 30-minute bursts, is a pretty weird character. And a good kind of weird in our eyes, that we actually remember him. I mean, isn't one of those forgettable foes like Shimoneka or even Yunba, his cohorts. I mean, it took me a little bit of reminding to actually remember the other two's names. On one hand, his design is pretty boring and kind of looks like something that Hit just cobbled together to try and dress up as someone else and pretend not to be in the story for a second time. But on the other hand though, 7-3 possesses a very unique set of powers that allow him to be less unique at the same time. All of this by stealing the powers of others, with a greater success than even Goku in fact. What's even more interesting is that when he was defeated by 17 and 18, Moro just simply ordered his minions to take care of the beaten up space android instead of just simply writing him off like with most minions in the past who lose, which may lead to a few things happening. First, 7-3 drains Moro, becoming effectively the main threat of the saga, as he is sick of listening to the Rams bickering and slowly goes out of control due to the power increase. Secondly, 7-3 drains Goku and confronts Moro, simple. And 3, 7-3 survives the Moro arc and wants to avenge his master in a future arc. You see, that last moment switcheroo would not be anything weird in Dragon Ball, and the sole fact that the guys behind this story haven't gotten rid of 7-3 just yet means that at least Toyotaro has plans for the android, either as a supporting character or a major character in the future. Keeping this guy alive feels like a classic example of Chekhov's gun, named after the Russian writer Anton Chekhov, a dramatic principle that states that every element in a story must be necessary, and if there is anything completely irrelevant or useless, it just should be removed, forgotten about, not to be confused with anything else. In short, don't keep things in a story if you have no plans to use them later. If you do, it makes the reader or viewer feel unsatisfied. Toriyama took that sentiment way too often to heart though, but we believe that in this case, Toyotaro may be all too familiar with his mentor's, let's just say shortcomings. Number 4, Mirrorless is back, baby! Don't get us wrong, we were quite happy with how Mirrorless' story has turned out so far. All in all, he has been a very interesting variation of the typical angel within the show, to try and keep them fresh. Those characters are already kind of interesting, like how is Kusu, the smallest of the angels, the oldest one? What is the full spectrum of Whis' powers? It's all a mystery. So it would be pretty weird to not see Mirror show up again in this arc. All that intrigue into this black sheep of a character leading to nowhere. He's off to the galactic naughty step for all eternity? Really? Mirrorless was the one to kick off this arc in the first place, and who's to say that he might want to intervene again and help the mortals one more time? Like, he can't just say no, he can't quit this mission, which will put him at odds against his own father and siblings, risking erasure, which in turn would strain the relationship between the GP and Goku and Vegeta, who will most likely defend Mirrorless, if he was proven to be helpful, that is. It might also end with him going rogue for good this time, as we've mentioned in our video regarding Mirrorless himself, out of his love for mortals, being like the anti-Zamasu here, which would be a really tragic story and pretty great material actually for the next arc. And as much as we would love to see this happen, it sounds a little too perfect and neat for Dragon Ball as we know it, and things might end up becoming a convoluted mess if it's not handled properly, similar to the Goku Black arc. But we can't help but be at least a tiny bit excited about Mirrorless' future appearances in the manga, and hopefully the anime as well. Maybe Whis will allow Goku and Mirrorless to train together at Beerus' place sometime, like some sort of a compromise. If angels can compromise. Maybe it won't end with anything sinister. We don't know for sure, but wherever Mirrorless will pop up again in the ending of this saga, whether or not he will actually take an active role in the fight against Moro, we feel that it would be a very anticlimactic story to omit Mirrorless entirely from the proceedings. And lastly, number 5, far from the end, the fall of Earth. You know that feeling during the Boo saga when multiple times throughout that story that you thought that Boo was done for, only for him to return with a brand new form, surprising everyone, causing even more havoc than what happened before? Well, from what we know so far, the Moro arc doesn't have to end yet. This could be merely the starting arc of a much more epic adventure. Our heroes may lose again, only to make a final stand against the villain somewhere else, similar to how their fight against Kid Boo ended. That would feel like a little bit of a stretch, and it would depend on just how well Toyotaro can sell that to us, and have a plan for future encounters going forward for at least a couple of years. One of the biggest problems we have with the Boo saga is how Boo outstayed his welcome as a villain in DBZ, and we would hate for that to happen to Moro. But having said that, Moro's already started to fall into the generic bad guy category anyway, with him waiting for Goku and Vegeta to arrive. But it would be a pretty sweet twist to see this actually paying off for him, and him managing to off-Earth. But it was still not something he would have done in the first third of the arc. The original Moro would have just gotten on with the job instantly. I feel that Toyotaro is running out of steam, so to try and drag this Moro out even more would be risky. Yes, I know this has happened in Dragon Ball before, but at this point it would really up the stakes a little bit, and would probably require some help from Mirrorless, as mentioned in the last point. Finally, it might lead to the point when it will not be Goku or Vegeta alone who will do the win, but the combined effort of all the Z fighters that will finally defeat him. That would be a sight to behold. So what do you guys think? Do you have your own ideas for the ending of the Galactic Prisoner arc? Do you think that any of our ideas are probable? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later.